governance. I'm recording the session. So we can actually, just from a purpose of PUM, we can follow up some of the questions or follow up items. It also gives us an opportunity to review how can we do it better. So I hope everyone's comfortable with it. Ooh, I think we got the CEO of Quinalo's just joined. We're joining. Okay, colleagues, it's 3 minutes past 6, and we have 23 participants in this meeting. We're expecting just over 30. If I may ask for your indulgence, and we just give us 2 more minutes or 3 more minutes before we actually kick off. Good evening, Sandy.
Thank you, Baba.
Hi, everyone.
Hi. We're just waiting a few minutes more before we actually kick off, Sandy.
No problem.
Oh, no, we can't see your photograph, Anna. Okay, colleagues, good evening. It's 5 past 6. We have about 24, 25 people in the meeting or the fireside chat. Good evening. My name is Akash Singh. I'm meant to be your host for this evening. I am the local representative for the PUM program in South Africa. And I think, before we actually kick off and go through the background and the context of today, I'd like to invite Ed Heinen, the country manager for South Africa, to maybe give some welcome and opening remarks. Ed, if you may do us the honors.
Yes, thank you, Akash, for giving me the honors. Hopefully I'm audible in this Zoom session. Thank you, everybody, for being present in this fireside chat, as Akash likes to call it. My name is Ed Heinen. I am country manager for South Africa for PUM Netherlands Senior Experts. I've been doing this for about 4 years, and before that I was an expert for PUM Netherlands Senior Experts as of 2002. In South Africa, we have about 100 projects that we perform each year. This is something that has been heavily hit by COVID, although we still do like 65 or something like that this year. In the world of PUM, we support 35 countries in the world, one of which is South Africa, obviously, but also 14 or 15 other countries on the African continent. In South Africa, we have in the team 6 local representatives, one of which is Akash in Durban, but also in Pretoria, Johannesburg, Bloemfontein, Cape Town, East London, and hopefully I'm not missing one right now. Also in the team is Anna Tishina, who may be available as well today. She is our project officer, and she also, like myself, sits in The Hague. We run the country from The Hague now, certainly because we are in a sort of kind of virtual period in time. But normally would come out 2-3 times a year to visit South Africa and be of service to the team, the local representatives, and to all the officials and customers that we have in South Africa. Kwanalu is for us an organization that we were very happy to sign an agreement with, to see how we could support Kwanalu, because one of our major areas of interest is agriculture. And so we are looking for opportunities to be of service to the members of Kwanalu, so we can bring our expertise to the members and help small and medium-sized enterprises involved to make a step towards the next level of their business. And so this is a very interesting opportunity to see a lot of you, and hopefully we will also see some of our experts presenting today. We've got a sector coordinator for agriculture, horticulture available, and also an expert who's is going to do a presentation on the topics that are involved in agriculture. So thank you very much again for your attendance, and well, we'll see. Obviously, I'm not the big boss, but I'd like to be part of the team. But I think that Akash is the big boss here tonight. So I think I'll hand the hammer over to him again, and wish him a lot of luck tonight.
Well, thank you, Ed. Thank you very, very much. Colleagues, it's very special. And I think you'll see tonight that, we've got like more than 8 or 10 in the audience, colleagues and partners that taken the time out from the Netherlands to invest and spend the evening with us. It's, this investment in time in the PUM program. We have 1,700 volunteers that give off up to 100 hours volunteering and helping businesses across the globe every year. So it's a very, very, and all at no cost, and they receive no fees back. So I'm going to take you a little bit around the journey in a short while about how the PUM program works, but very briefly, because at the end of today's, once you've listened to some of the key topics around regenerative farming and soil health, and look a bit on solar farming or solar in farming and agriculture, you'll also get an opportunity to think, is there an opportunity for you to access a PUM Global Coach or a PUM Global Business Scholarship? And I think the intention is to tell you about PUM, in particular, not only talk about the organization, talk about 2 or so topics that are close to your heart. And we've reached out to you as members of Kwanalu. This event is in the context of a partnership that PUM in South Africa has with Kwanalu. I think it goes back probably a year ago, and we did a pilot study and we've taken on about 9 to 10 Kwanalu members on a PUM. We call it a business scholarship or a mentorship or coaching, and it's been relatively successful. We have one of the beneficiaries here to share some testimony in a short while later, but that's the context. It's a relaxed evening, and feel free to ask questions as we go along. So the format is very much background onto PUM, and I'll set the context, and then we'll maybe have the topic first, take a few minutes stretch break, second topic, and after each topic is completed, we'll ask some questions. So relax. We've asked you to bring your snacks with you, colleagues. So you're more than welcome to switch your cameras on if you want to. But I think before we kick off, I think it's only right that this partnership with PUM is in partnership with Kunalu, and we are actually honored to have Sandy and McHugh, the Chief Executive Officer, here this evening. So, Sandy, I think we'll be honored to have a few remarks from yourself.
Thank you, Akash. Good evening, everyone. So we have a lovely, pleasant, rainy evening where I am here on the sort of coast of KwaZulu-Natal at the moment. And on Monday, we were up in Ishawi where we had 39 degrees. And yesterday afternoon, or yesterday morning, I was down in the very southern part of KZN in Kokstad, where it was a mild 11 degrees. So we have a very diverse province. We have a very diverse range of commodities that are produced in this province. And so this opportunity to partner with PUM has really been an excellent experience, excellent opportunity, particularly for our members, providing them an opportunity to seek coaching, mentorship. And I think that the 2 calls that we've done so far have really been exciting, and that we've had a number of interested members that have participated, and obviously we'll be hearing from Simon in a short while about his experience. But it's really given us quite an interesting approach and idea as to what people are interested in. And I just reflect back on my last 2 days. I've just done a number of visits to young farmers in the province, and it was so interesting. A number of them were talking about regenerative agriculture, and lo and behold, tonight that is our topic. So yeah, it just reflects that people are looking at opportunities, new product development, green energy, a whole range of opportunities that perhaps we haven't had access to in any great measure here in our province or in our country. So yeah, I think it will lead to a lot of innovative thinking, and hopefully we'll see our members benefit, and that the commodities that they're producing will also be able to reach higher levels in terms of what they take off their crops, etc. So yeah, we are very excited about the relationship, about the opportunity that has been granted to our members to have access to world-class leaders in their fields, coaches, mentors. So yeah, from my side, Akash, thank you to you and your team. I just want to say thanks to John Flanagan from my office, who's also played a great role in putting together the partnership, being part of this evening's plans with yourself, Akash. So from my side, just a very big thank you, and I trust that our members will enjoy this evening and that we'll have many more opportunities like this going into the future. So thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. Yeah, and absolutely. And this is probably the first of what topics the members want to hear of, and hopefully PUM has that expertise in its database. So colleagues, we're going to kick off. As mentioned, it's a casual evening. You're more than welcome to drop some questions if you're shy, or at the end of the presentation, you're more than welcome to ask questions. We've got a nice giveaway. We actually have a giveaway from a PUM beneficiary. So at the end of today's session, we're going to have a lucky draw, and we're giving away 2 nights stay for 2 people at Antbeer Lodge in the Drakensberg. This is a PUM beneficiary. It's a very smart product if you Google Antbeer Lodge. So I encourage you to stay towards the end. But colleagues, we're going to kick off, and I'm going to start off just creating the context around how the PUM program works very briefly. I'm going to start off by playing a video, a 2-minute video, and it's going to set the context. So how PUM worked historically is you would apply as an organization, you meet the requirements, they would match your CV and they send it to you for approval, or that you like it or you approve it. And then the PUM expert would fly over from the Netherlands and spend 10 or 12 days in your business looking at a particular technical problem. These are not general consultants. These are people that have 10, 20, 30 years industry experiences, as well as they might have their own business attached to it. So it's unusual. So it's, you know, the type of experience, if you had to go to Deloitte's or McKinsey's, we shouldn't call McKinsey's because they've got a bad name in our country at the moment. You'd pay 2,000 to 3,000 Rand an hour, you know, for this kind of expertise. So it's a very unique experience. But with COVID, as Ed has mentioned, we kind of repurposed it. We're doing a part of it using remote coaching. Teams, Zoom, WhatsApp. We've actually done about 4 or 5, if I'm not mistaken, or more, farming in the last 6 months using this version. And then once it's safe to travel, these companies also have the option to have their PUM expert to continue or to look at the next phase of their mission. So historically, physical mission, fly down, PUM will fly them down. You would make and host the expert just for board and lodge. You pay no costs attached to it. And they'll give up to 100, 120 hours absolutely free to work in your business with yourselves. So I'm just going to show you a small video that talks about the remote coaching option that's available currently. And then I'm going to take you through how the actual PUM program works. And then post that, colleagues, we are going to maybe have a quick couple of questions before we move into some of the topics. So if you just give me 2 seconds, I'm just going to try to find my screen. Brenda, please would you tell me if you're able to see the video? Are you able to see the video, Miranda?
Not yet.
Okay, start again. I'm just seeing I've got a lot of windows open. Cool. How about now, Miranda? Are you able to see it?
Starting, right? Yeah.
Okay, cool. Colleagues, if you may just give me your attention for 90 seconds.
Hello, I am a representative from PUM Netherlands Senior Experts. PUM is a Dutch organisation that dispatches experienced entrepreneurs to assist small and medium-sized enterprises in 35 countries around the world. Over the past 40 years, our volunteers generally visited the companies in person, but in the face of COVID, we have developed a new service based on remote coaching.
What exactly does that mean, remote coaching?
Given the fact that at present we are not able to visit our clients on site, we have developed a method of offering practical advice remotely. PUM can call upon a large pool of former entrepreneurs who are all experts in their professional field. Almost nothing surprises them, and their goal is to provide valuable solutions to help your business grow sustainably.
Wow, that sounds great. But how does it work?
You reach agreement with the PUM expert on when and how you contact one another via video call or WhatsApp, email, etc. If the expert discovers during the process that his or her knowledge is insufficient, then he or she can call other PUM experts for their advice. Remote coaching means that PUM experts can respond rapidly and effectively. It goes without saying that any support we offer is given in confidence. PUM works with entrepreneurs with international experience who enjoy helping fellow entrepreneurs grow their business.
I like the idea that the service is flexible and completed in a relatively short period.
So obviously, advertising a service to farmers.
You can discuss with me the challenges facing your business so that I can use the relevant information to find a suitable expert. As soon as we have together identified the ideal match, remote coaching can be started without delay.
What a great idea. This will certainly help me grow my business. When can we schedule an appointment?
PUM, those are the ones offering the...
Yeah, so colleagues, if you may, that's the bonus of having, just give me a second. Cool. Okay, good. Colleagues, I think that was just an overview, and I'm just going to share with you very, very briefly in customized terms, in terms of how the program works in South Africa, some little nuts and bolts. So it's very, very few slides, and then I'll take a few questions. But before I take a few questions, I'm going to ask Simon to maybe just give me his experience. Miranda, are you able to view the screen?
Yeah.
Cool. So colleagues, it's very much PUM's been in our country and working for more than 40 years. You'd be able to see that we're not talking about consultants, we're talking about entrepreneurs, we're talking about technical experience that's willing to share their knowledge for free, and they've been doing it for 42 years. Personally, I've helped bring around 650 of these experts to companies in South Africa. So I've worked 16 years with the program. And we have a good understanding of how the program works. So if you look at the history over the years, I think in South Africa, it's just over 25 years that this program has been operating. and it has a pool of 1,700 volunteers that give off their time and that want to contribute to improving small businesses in 35 countries around the world. So that's the unusualness, is that it's free technical advice. In South Africa, we have a couple of indicators. PUM is here to help establish businesses. So we typically look at companies that have more than 10 staff, up to 250 or thereabout. You've got to obviously be committed to the project and be operating for 3 years. So it's very easy. You've got to be a South African owned company. And if you meet these requirements, we typically would ask you to complete an application, and we'd capture it into web workflow system, and it'll get vetted. And once it gets vetted by Anna and it goes off, and by Ed, it goes off to the sector coordinators. We have 2 this evening in the audience. They are people responsible for all the coaches or technical experts in that sector. And they will go and look for amongst their pool of 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 people who's best suited to look at your problems. Very simplistically, if I may emphasize, 2 to 3 years old, up but more than 10 to 15 staff, up to 250, 300, and it must have a turnover of less than about 160 or 170 million. So it's medium-sized enterprises. PUM is not geared for startups as individual beneficiaries. You obviously got to have internet connection, even WhatsApp or Zoom, to make this remote coaching possible. And then once PUM is able to fly over, when the pandemic is over, and my best indication is probably Q1, Q2 next year, you'll have the option to even fly down your coach. So if I may share my experiences over the 650 that I've done, they typically become friends for life. Most of the coaches work long hours, sometimes on the weekends, looking at a technical problem, training on disease control, for example, of staff, or going out to meet suppliers or meeting customers to understand the challenges and problems, coming back and working in the business. So it's a very hands-on approach to coaching, and having a global remote coach to look at independently into your business. The remote coaching, we probably quantified, it's valued, it's probably going to be 6 to 8 weeks of over, an hour or 2 of the week, around about 40,000 rands. The actual visit, we actually valued around about $250,000, because PUM obviously has to pay insurance, the flights to get the expert down to South Africa. So if I may share with you, in the last 20 or so missions or coaching that's happening, a lot of people are looking at how to reinvent themselves post-COVID and diversify their businesses and look at new options. I think in the last 6 months, we've had in my portfolio, I've had about 15 to 20 farming or agriculture related coaching initiatives or missions. And we're seeing a lot of people, besides identifying the gaps, are looking to diversify business. So very simplistically, colleagues, meet the criteria, you complete the application. And I think you all would have met Marinda, and she's in the audience today. She helps project manage and implement and quality checks before it gets processed into the system. PUM will see if they can meet your match, and they'll send you one CV. And hopefully you're happy with it. If you're not happy for it, you give us 1 or 2 reasons, good reasons. We'll probably look again, but if we can't find by the second time, we probably don't have that expertise. And then once you're happy with the CV, you meet with the coach, and you can start based on both of your availability. So PUM does this in 35 countries, colleagues, as I've mentioned to you, as Ahmed has mentioned to you. And in South Africa, we've got a couple of themed areas we focus on. You can see agriculture and food processing is a strong area. So is tourism and hospitality, one of the sectors that is very badly affected at the moment. We also focus on energy, water, waste, and environment, as well as chemical and metal. So these are the sectors in South Africa that PUM has got a focus and makes the program available. So colleagues, that is very, very much a overview of the program. And, it's sometimes a lot of people says it sounds like a 411 scam. Why do you want, who wants to help my business for free, or who wants to spend 100 hours? It exists, it happens. And if I may ask you, Simon, from Acadia Estates, who's been on one PUM mission, he's found so much of value on it. And I think about 3 weeks ago, he's asked to have his second session. So Simon, if I may ask you to give you a few minutes to maybe unmute and maybe just give your experience and hopefully explain to the audience how seamless it was. Thank you. Simon?
Oh, thanks, Akash. Hi, everyone. I'm a farmer in KZN. I farm sugarcane and timber predominantly, but I am moving into kind of the regenerative organic realm. We are moving into organic lemons and avocados specifically. And anyway, and that's why I can't actually remember how I got into PUM. I think it was through Kwanalu, actually. I saw an advert somewhere. And I have, yeah, like Akash said, I'm on my second expert. For those of you who care to know, and it kind of gives you a good idea of the kind of the problem that I had. Being organic, and obviously there are not too many organic farms in KZN. One of the, composting is one of the biggest, I want to say not problems, but one of the biggest inputs. And it was nice. So that the first expert actually helped me on composting. And he had done it on a commercial scale in the Netherlands, and he had been working on 2 or 3 facilities, and it really was helpful to have someone who had done it before. And then so he just worked with me for, it was probably 2 months. We met on Zoom once every 2 weeks for an hour, and he put some action plans together. And I try to meet those basically. And then if there were, and then he just he flooded me with a lot of information. We were kind of developing a worm farm at the same time. So he, I thought I'd get most of my information from the web. And he introduced me to like a bunch of information that I would never have been able to get hold of. It was a roaring success. Now I have compost heaps that are, reaching temperature, and I know a lot more on the subject. And that brings me into my, my second topic, which was, where to sell the fruit, where to market my fruit, to do a bit of market research. I'm now pretty well established from the agronomy side of things, and I needed to kind of enhance my knowledge just in terms of the markets. I didn't really have a good idea of where I was going to market my fruit, and how I was going to go about that. And it was really just improving my confidence in that area. And it's the reason why I think a PUM email popped up, and I thought, well, geez, what a good way to understand that side of things and get a really good understanding of the market in Europe. And we are 2 weeks in, and the expert is he has a wealth of knowledge in Europe and in that area. And we've already put some action plans in place, which I'm very excited about. I don't know if there's anything else that anyone wants to know, but it's been really great, and I'm always very impressed at the added benefits and the I'm just looking at my notes here. They always seem to have that they always bring a lot more to the party than one would think. I mean, clearly they are experts, and they're very professional in the way they do things. So I would encourage anyone, certainly, you are far richer having had a PUM experience, than you would have been without one.
Cool. Thank you, Simon. Thank you very, very much. And I think, we have like about 10 to 11 beneficiaries from Kunalu in the pilot phase. So colleagues, you have the opportunity to be a beneficiary, to look at one technical problem, one particular area in your business, and get an expert to help you, just like how Simon has been assisted. And at the end of today, and I think now in the chat, John will put a link where you can reach out via Kunalu. You also have Miranda's and my contact details. You can see the link that John's just posted on, that you could say that you're interested. But our doors are open. But before we go on, and just if there's any questions around how the PUM program works, we've got two topics that we want to build your knowledge. We've got two of our experts from our panels, one around regenerative farming and the other around solar farming in agriculture, and give you some examples of what PUM is doing across the globe with some ideas. It might be a problem you have, but any questions on how the PUM program works, anything you're not sure, just programmatically, and it's all voluntary. Should you want to participate, you're more than welcome to. Okay, colleagues, any questions? Going once, going twice. Anna, I thought you'd ask me a question, like, just to be difficult. Anna, I thought you'd ask me what's my favorite color. But she hasn't did. We're trying to get Anna to put a camera on, but she's obviously not listening. So colleagues, any questions going once? John, you want to add anything to this? You've been on this journey over the last year or so. Anything to add? John?
Akash, I was gonna say it at the end. Can you hear me? Am I coming through?
Yes.
I was just gonna say thank you to you guys. You and Mirinda are very patient with me and with some of our farmers and our communication, and I'm a hassle to get hold of and respond, because I'm always in the field and off the laptop and in and out. And yeah, thank you. You guys have been exceptional, and I'm really enjoying it. Looking forward to the topics tonight, and thank you for what you're bringing to our members. It's been valuable.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Colleagues, if you do have questions, you're more than welcome to look at the link, show your interest. You can drop Mirinda or myself an email, but let's kick off tonight. So colleagues, the reason why we're here today is this program, this wonderful program that we call PUM, has a pool of 1,700 experts and senior experts, attached to it. So tonight we're going to pick the brain. We wanted to talk around, we asked some questions, when you applied. We've also engaged with Kunalu and saying, what are the two topics? And we also looked at the 10, 11 missions that we had, what's top of mind. We also remember, look what's on the radar ahead. So for those of you who know that COP26 in Glasgow, the big environmental meeting globally is happening on the 31st of October till 12th of November. And protecting and creating a regenerative kind of environment is top of mind. I was in a meeting this afternoon with one of the large mining houses, and everyone is scrambling to say, how can we make regenerative agriculture, regenerative planting top of mind? It's definitely the future. So this evening we have one of our experts, Rick Hidding, who's joined us and who's volunteered to talk on this particular program. He's going to take us through a few slides. And I think more importantly, besides sharing knowledge and ideas and some of the themes, what's happening, encouraging you to have questions. No question is a stupid question. So please feel free to ask or put it into the chat. Colleagues, I'm an accountant, so I know nothing about farming. So I might, so don't feel like you're scared to ask any questions. So Rick, are you there? I'm just going to give, just to make sure you got sharing rights. I think everyone's allowed to share. Are you able to share, Rick?
Yes, I did not try yet. I work always in Teams and almost never in Zoom, but I think it's possible. So I will do this a few seconds later. First, I will say something. Okay, excellent. So before Rick just gets himself in and starts, Jenna, you're saying who funds it? It's funded by the people of Netherlands. It's funded by the government, and it's made available, and it's been made available in South Africa over the last 26 or 27 years. Rick, the floor is yours. If I may suggest maybe 15 or thereabout minutes or slightly more, and then we'll give the audience an opportunity for questions. Well, thank you very much, Akash. Well, the regenerative farming is very complex, so I think I need the next 10 hours. But you give me 15 minutes, so we'll keep it the very complex problem very simple. Well, my name is Rick Hidding. I'm 49 years old. I've been for 25 years organic farmer in Holland in the vegetable production. I moved 15 years ago to Poland. I started out an organic farm too. 5 years ago, my ranching contract ended, so I started to do different things. I worked as a freelancer for Sunopta, who is a raw material buyer from America, who had also a company in Amsterdam. I've worked a lot in the Far East, like Russia, Kazakhstan, and Ukraine, etc. Well, 1.5 years ago, I started working for Van Oers. This is a Dutch company who is owned at this moment by Agrial, a French company, who is producing fresh vegetables. And they started up organic farming because of the demand of organic fresh vegetables in Europe. They asked me to start a project for them, and at this moment I'm in Morocco. We have here at the moment 120 hectares of organic vegetable production. We started new farms. One farm, it's a little bit in the out of the sea region, and it can be very hot. We hit the 50 degrees 2 months ago, so we have a water problem, we have a temperature problem, we have a climate problem, we have lots of problems. But it doesn't matter. We start harvesting next week fresh beans, fresh bunch onions, sweet corn, sweet potato. We start also a second farm at this moment in Senegal, where I fly next week to. So that's a little bit about me, about my job. I've been in your area, I think in 2019, because I had a friend of mine, J.J. van der Velde, Johannes Jan van der Velde. I think I saw him also on your website. He was married to Mrs. Samantha, and he was going he sold his farm in Nottingham Road. And I think a lot of guys of you should know him, but he tragically died in a car accident in 2018. And his wife left the area, and she has now a farm in Australia. It's a little bit a sad story, but I think all of you guys should know him because I saw him also on your website of the Farmers Union from Panaloo. So probably he must be famous because he was a very good guy, a very good farmer and a very good guy. Yes, Gemma, you know him? Okay. Well, it's a sad story, but I've been in your area there, so I know a little bit about it. He was a very good friend. We've been to study. We spent a lot of time together, and we had a lot of fun. Everybody had fun with GJ. Okay, I will try to share my screen. You can see it? Can somebody react if they can see it?
Not yet.
Not yet.
No, we can't see it, Rick. Maybe, there we are. It's coming.
Yes. Okay.
Coming through? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can.
Okay. Thank you. Well, soil health and regenerating farming, it's a very complex thing, and I think 50 minutes is way too short. Okay, 12 minutes left. Soil fertility. I think all farmers know, of course, a lot about it, and they know a lot about it, and they know it's complex, but it's about the nutrients in the right proportions. It's about the root growth, it's the air in the ground, it's the water retention, it's the drainage internally in the ground, it's about the organic matter in the ground, it's about the pH, it's about the microorganism, it's about the biodiversity, it's about diversity of organism in your ground, it's about the essentials of the cycle of the ecosystem of this nutrient, that it's very important if you want to have this these nutrients available. You need to have like these organisms in the ground who lives in a cycle, who can give the nutrients to the plants. It's about to protect your ground against erosion. It's about the water absorption. It's about the water storage in your ground. The carbon sequestration, at the moment, it's a very popular thing. Everybody talks about it. We can even make money with it as a farmer. I hear even people talking about it, that we don't have to farm anymore. We only store carbon in the ground and we are rich, but okay, it's not the issue. It's about organic matter in the ground and how you deal with this.
the storing of the carbon, I think this is one of the basic things of farming. You want to have a better carbon, more carbon in the ground, more organic matter in the ground. And you can do this with the growing of the grass, but then it's above the ground with the trees. But you want them in the ground with the cover crops and the mulching. So I think a lot of farmers, they know already a lot of things about soil health, but it's a very complex thing. But the farmer, of course, in my opinion, when I was a farmer and when I'm here also even in Africa, here in Africa, the soil health is a very complex thing. And even here, it's even more important because of the climate, temperature and rain. If you look to the north of Europe, it's very, very easy farming compared to this side of the world. But we have the internal conditions that makes it more complex. What is your location? How is your soil, what you start with or where you want to end with? Do you have only crops or do you also have cattle? Or what is the scale of your farm? Are you big or are you small? What kind of mechanization do you have? Do you have already machinery that you can lift your bottom, or you have no-till system, or you have the way to work with cover crops? How is your financial situation? Do you have the possibility to invest in your ground, or you only have to make money to surviving? What is your personal long-term scope? Do you have children or do you have grandchildren and you want to take care of the land as an idea as the next generation? This is all things that are important, what makes the soil health a personal thing. You have the external conditions. You have the climate, and everybody, if you're a believer or not believer of the climate change, it doesn't matter. Everybody who's a farmer feels that it's changing. And here where I work now in Morocco, we have a water problem, and every year we're drilling deeper and deeper for water. Every year there is 1 degree more. So if you make a graphic of it, you know where we're going to end. It's going to be very, very difficult. How is your market? If you do work local market or export market, if you're an export market, you know already that you have the questions of your buyer. They need certificates. You have to prove how you deal with the grounds. Then the government, especially like in Europe, the government is very fanatical. They're making laws. The farmers always complaining, but it's one way to deal with climate change, and so we have to work with that. But it makes it all complex. Well, the question is, of course, what is my current situation in soil health and regenerative farming? What are my current issues? And in my opinion, is the question to yourself, where you want to stand with your farm and your soil in, for example, 5 or 10 years. As a PUM, but of course, everybody who is here in PUM in South Africa can of course say better. But what can we add? We can advise you to analyze your personal farm situation, like internally for the soil or the mechanization situation, crop rotation, soil management. If you do already composting, like I heard Simon, it was a very nice story, Simon, thank you. Like, do you start with composting? How do you start it? It's complex. Do you want to start with it? How is your water management, etc.? The external. How does the climate change affect your farming? Where does it hit you or where it doesn't hit you? Do you have too much water, too less water? Is it too hot? Is it too dry? What are your customer demands? Do they ask for the certificates? That certificates, we here in Morocco, we start already with our footprints. They want to have a footprint certificate. Well, how big is your CO2, your carbon footprint of the product you produce? They want to have a number on it. Sorry. You need to show a lot of certification. And of course, what is the government asking? We can assist in defining the future plans of the farm into more regenerative, more sustainable farming and management. We can assist in collecting knowledge and how to use it and integrate it. We have in our group a lot of knowledge with all the details, like what Simon said about the compost. It's a nice idea what he showed us. So this is a little bit my small presentation. Thank you for listening. Questions and ideas?
Well, so thank you, Rick. So maybe some questions around the particular topic area. If I may ask the audience, or if anyone wants to ask questions around that they might have their personal, on their farm, to say how, what is the challenge in a particular area of regenerative or soil, or maybe a question around if PUM is able to help. Any questions? I see Gemma's put her camera on. I'm assuming you'd like to ask a question. You muted, Gemma.
Yeah.
Hello, Gemma.
You're going to have to unmute me.
Now we hear you.
Hear you.
Can you hear me? Okay, good. Lovely to meet you, and thanks for your presentation. I think for a lot of us who are running farms in South Africa, it's very hard for us to make really long-term plans. Our government legislation is quite scary sometimes, or things that they certainly have on the table, and we can't deny that it does exist. Having said that, there are many of us that are really passionate about our land, and we're wanting to try and not do it just for commercial gain, but certainly do it so that there's generational growth as part of a bigger understanding of this global crisis that we're in, and how to make, you know, how to do our bit. My question to you is, an example is our businesses need to be resilient. And so we've got fertilizer prices that are sitting at enormous, I mean, we're just enormously vulnerable with some of our inputs as farmers. And I see that there's so much potential with regenerative farming. So on our farm, for example, we do precision planting. We do a huge amount of soil sampling so that we're not applying any extra fertilizer or any extra pesticides. We don't follow a tailored program. We watch it all by eye and only apply when needed. We keep very strict records of everything that we do, so we can try and learn every year and further improve the way that we work with the nutrients in the soil and the water and the carbon. We monitor those very closely. We run a mixed farming system. And so we're trying to always have cover crops. A lot of the concepts that I understand to do with regenerative farming, we're already doing. We do no-till farming. But when something like this happens, where you have a massive food increase, what is the new, what technologies are regenerative farmers or the education around it? What are they suggesting for these kinds of things? I mean, you can't generate enough manure out of our cattle to go and to use on our whole system. It's not practical. So it's finding practical solutions for our challenges.
Rick, if you answer the question, it says when the cost of inputs becomes too high and you don't have scalability, is there any technology or is there any aggregation, like, you know, in some industries, like forestry aggregates as cooperative?
Yeah, thank you, Yama. It sounds that you're already on the good way. You're already far. It sounds very good. I think if you sell a product, you take something, something leave your farm, so you have to bring it again back. If you have in your crop, you said already you have already cover crops. If your crop rotation is already good and you do soil samples, then you see if the organic matter is stable or is growing. If it's stable or is growing, you're already on the good road. And if you have the right crop rotation, for example, 1 on 6 or 1 on 5 or 1 on 7. So if you have the heavy crops 1 on 7, if you have light crops 1 on 5, then you're on the good road. And if you do the soil samples, you can follow everything. And if your returns of the ground are quite okay, then I think you're already in a good situation. And if you start, for example, a compost project on your own farm, so that you can add compost, or you can found local manure that you can mix with your compost, or you have already an example of composting in your area. So there are systems and there are techniques to keep it regenerative, to keep the farm closed, that you don't have to add as less as possible. I have here an organic farm here in Morocco. We have even better results than the conventional one after the 15 years of farming. So even that is possible, that the financial results are even better, or even the quantitative, the kilograms can already be higher here than in an organic farm than in a conventional one. So it shows that if you are working and investing in your ground, that on the long term you will win. But you said to me that you are already on the good road, and I think the problems that should not be very big.
Cool. Excellent. Colleagues, any other questions? So I think you would have got from listening to Rick is that, you know, PUM might be sponsored and championed by the people of Netherlands, but the experience and the experts work around the world, from Morocco, Senegal, Asia, and other parts of Europe. Any other questions, colleagues, for Rick?
I've got one, Akash.
Cool. John? Go for it.
Rick, thanks. Very informative. I'm just interested, the sort of regenerative angles you spoke about were primarily cropping. A few years ago, a guy named Alan Savory did a TED talk, very controversially titled "Save the World, Eat More Beef," and he spoke about high density grazing and the sequestration of carbon in brittle environments, that sort of thing. But then we see, academic literature which says actually it's all false, or it doesn't make a difference, or it does. And yet, I've seen videos and pictures of places that are remarkably, transformed. Have you had any experience with sort of regenerative farming in beef and livestock? Do you think that there is really a sequestration possibility there? And I don't know, maybe do the cows get a worse rap than they deserve?
Yeah, well, if I understand it good, you're in the beef production. Well, I'm not a specialist in all those details, but if I see, I was also already in Kazakhstan, and there the harvest of the wheat were as low and conventional that you can imagine they have about 1.5 tons of wheat by hectare. There was a farmer, he had 50,000 hectares, and he started with 500 hectares of organic farming. And after 2 or 3 years, he said already, it's possible to have a higher yield with organic farming than with conventional. And I said, yes, that's logical, because you invest in the ground, and if you invest in the ground, it's going to bring you back. And in West Europe, the beef production, everybody criticizes it, but the consumption is still growing. So as long as the consumption is still growing and people criticize it, then the reality that the beef consumption is growing. And if the amount of people in the world is growing and everybody wants to drive a Mercedes and eat beef and drink milk, then we need to grow more and we need to produce more. And I hope finally the prices will rise, and as the prices will rise, then the production go down. But when I was in South Africa, in your area, and I see this production of the meat with the sheep and the beef, and I see the landscape you have, I see that there can be a really nice combination, because the landscapes give you really good possibility to have beef production, and it can be combined, and it can be also combined with regenerating farming. I think in Canada you have some really inspiring farmers who do that. There are on YouTube some movies, some guys who do that. They have the farming with the beef. They have them outside. They use the ground. They use the grass. They plow it again with the 15 centimeter plowing, and they use it again. So I'm not a specialist in beef production, but I think there are a lot of possibilities in that.
Cool, thank you. Okay, any other questions, colleagues? Any other questions for Rick? Going once.
Akash?
Yep,
Akash,
Simon.
Just one for Rick. Sorry that the lady that spoke about her the issue that they had with fertilizer prices increasing. Obviously, regenerative farming is all about improving the biology in the soil. And I know there's been a lot of examples in areas around the world where people who had been 100% reliant on synthetic fertilizers are now yielding the same yields they previously yielded with absolutely no fertilizer. But with certain inputs, obviously compost being one of them, but not at the quantities that you would expect. Just enough to keep the biology happy, and obviously mixed seeded cover crops. I wonder if Rick could just maybe talk to that. And is that a possibility? In her case, I presume she was farming maize. Is that a possibility in her case, Rick?
I think if you do the maize, yeah, and it's like the total harvest of the total plant. It's not like the sweet corn.
Yes.
Yeah, so you need the big volume of the plant. You need you take out a lot of phosphates, stickstoff, kalium, because you take out all the plants. So you need a lot of volume. I think if your ground is in a really good condition, and you just grow the maize in one or 6 or 1 in 7 years, you could have a good crop without the fertilizers. But if the soil is clay, or it's sandy soil and it's poor soil, I think it's very difficult. It's very difficult. You need to add the manure. You need to add something to have enough azot in the first period of growing. Then you need such a powerful ground, or you have to add something. So I think this is a difficult thing. Growing corn for feeding of the cows, if you have poor soil without adding something.
Sure.
Cool. Colleagues, any other questions for Rick? Going once.
Sorry, I might have a few.
Okay, there we
Yeah, I had
go.
one.
Go for it. Ladies first, John. I see Gemma's
Ladies,
first. Yes.
No, John, I'm really interested in what you're saying as well, because we also beef farmers, and there's so much to constantly be looking at how to improve what you do. I'm involved in, I lecture, one of the things that I do as a side interest is sustainability. I lecture sustainability, and farmers, as soon as you say that you're a farmer, there's like bullets that come at you about the fact that you're damaging our environment. It's quite tricky when you're trying to look at best practice the whole time, but it's not always realistic. And so the concept of applying compost, when you're doing soil samples and you're saying, well, this year we need to apply more nitrogen, or we need to apply more of this to get our balances right. Is it practical to take away all synthetic fertilizers and to only use sort of regenerative, to go completely regenerative when you are a commercial system? So we do maize and soya, and we rotate every 4 years at the moment. Is it realistic to say that you can go, you know how you hear people going completely off grid? Can you go completely regenerative, or do you have to have, synthetic options, for when you're in trouble? And the irony is that we had a complication on our farm, and it's the only farm in South Africa. This specific bug started in our farm, and it challenged the genetically modified maize seed. And out of all the farms in our area, we're the one that's probably the most regenerative, and it started on our farm. So it does make you think about the environment and how it reacts to these kinds of practices, maybe.
Yes, thank you, Gemma. It's a very good question. Yes, it is commercial possible, and it is also possible to have financial results in a regenerating or organic farm who is not using any chemical fertilizer whatsoever. Of course, it depends on your rainfall and when the rain falls, or is it and the quality of your soil. There are so many indicators who are important, but if there are for fertilizers, you also of course need rainfall, but it's a different story. There are enough examples of farms who are very successful without any chemical fertilizers. So yes, this is possible.
Okay, John.
So just thinking about the soil nutrients there again, we all learn very early, primary school probably, that we can put nitrogen in the soil if we rotate with a legume. But when we look at our organic fertilizers, it's always N, P, and K. And the phosphates, unless I'm mistaken, they tell you got to get bone meal and that sort of thing. Or no, rock phosphate, and then calcium is bone meal. That's right, it's calcium, that's bone meal. But potassium, are there crops that you can grow that draw this stuff out particularly well to help you on balance, or specialists like things like potassium and a phosphate? Phosphate's a rock, but where do we get it? How do you just find unless your farm has it or doesn't have it? And are there crops that are better at pulling it out and making it available to other plants? Should we be looking at, I don't know, specialist use crops for particular nutrients that we need to replace? It's a very open-ended question. But
well, potassium, if you I don't know your soil analyzers, but if you have your soil analyzers and you can see, for example, that magnesium is extremely high, it pushes out the availability for plants to take out potassium. But this is a very technical thing because I don't know your soil, I don't know the quality, I don't know the amount of rain and the climate whatsoever. But if you don't have it, you are of course in trouble. There are crop rotations who can make it the ground in a better situation than what is there to give it. But if you really don't have it, you have to add it anyway because it has to be there. Yeah. So, and of course there are organic products available. In Europe, we have a really big list of organic products where we have all kinds of the big elements, NPK, and then of course the spore element. The small elements are more easy to give. But in the big elements, we have quite a list of products, but they are sometimes quite expensive. Even if Gemma said, and I forgot, but she has already growing soya. Soya is a beautiful crop for your ground, but we have also already they're pressing out of the soya a kind of bacterial life that you can buy a soya product, a liquid product that you can even put in drip systems. Who has or you can choose the azote, and you can choose the one with the higher phosphate or kalium. So there are all kinds of products in Europe available. We are at this moment shipping products to Senegal to our farm of 50 hectares to put in a drip system because we have there a farm with very poor ground. So we need to have, of course, we put in compost and manure, but to lift this poor ground, we need to have a kind of kit that if the plant is growing and the sun is shining and the plant is fading away, is starting to become yellow, that we have an alarm kit, we can do something. So we ordered organic products who have the certificate that we can use it. I'm not a fan of it. I'm not really happy that we have to do that, but we need to do that because we have to survive financially. If we don't have a plant who produces, we don't have any money and we will stop the project. So we buy the product, it's expensive, but of course, the long-term vision is we have to have the soil in better condition. But if we're not there, we have to have products and we can use them as an ambulance who's coming.
Excellent. Colleagues,
Thank
I'm
you,
going to take, thank you, Rick. Thank you, John. I'm going to take one or so more question. Remember, this is just to start the conversation. You know, if you have a technical question and you want me to get one of the PUM experts to, you know, to help you, we're still able to do it post this particular event. And hopefully it might even turn out into a technical problem that you need help, which PUM can help you in as well. So it's not the end of the journey. I'm just trying to manage time to make sure we don't go too late. And we also get the best out of today's session. So the left brain was on regenerative farming. We're going to take one or two more questions. I don't know if there's any more. Going once, going twice. You're more than welcome to still add it into the chat, and maybe Rick, if you can have a look at it periodically if there's any more questions. But thank you very, very much, Rick, for taking the time. I'm sure from
You're welcome.
Morocco, and we wish you all the best. Enjoy it, and hopefully you'd be able to have one of these particular companies that apply, and hopefully you get matched to assist as well. Or maybe you can visit some of these clients when we're allowed to travel back to South Africa. But thank you very much. I sincerely appreciate it. And big thank you on behalf of South Africa.
Thank you.
Good, excellent. Colleagues, it is now 5 minutes past 7. We're actually doing well for time. If I may ask for you, I know it's we've been going for an hour or so. We're going to probably just take 2 minutes break, just a stretch break. For some of you that are old as me, I have to officially must make a break so I can go to the loo and come back. So we're going to just adjourn for 3 minutes. Please do not leave. We're going to come back in the next 3 minutes and we're going to continue with the next session. So is everyone comfortable? It's now 19:06. We'll be back at 19:09 or 19:10. Is everyone comfortable? Good, excellent. Thank you, colleagues. We'll see you back in 3 minutes. Just for a stretch break, grab that extra drink or snack and or run to the loo. Thank you. So, colleagues, welcome back. And Ed, that was for you. That was a Drakensberg Boys Choir at Schiphol Airport. I don't know if you noticed that, Ed.
You know, I noticed that it was an airport, but other than that,
It was the Dutch airport.
I didn't know. I didn't notice that one.
Yeah, so it is. Colleagues, welcome back. It is now 19:10. We got a small more session to go. And I think we're going to now talk on something totally different about talking about how do you infusing solar into your farming. And this is one of the areas that PUM has a lot of experience, you know, and it has a very much, you know, like I think currently in the country, within my portfolio, I have about 3 or 4 applications around solar or projects that are working on. We have one, I think, beneficiary from Kunalu who's looking at a bit of solar and infusing it with hydro energy as well to reduce his obligation in the grid. We've also had one expert that's come through, a Sister Kunalu member, that's looked at verifying some calculations that is going to add another 100 kilowatts of power back into his farm. So we have a big pool of experts, I think, you know, up to 30 or slightly more on a variety of topics, from entry level to catalytic solutions. And across the African continent, there's quite a few projects that have worked. So it's a very, very important area. It's a new area. We know a lot of the farmers are actually exploring it. So I think you might find this interesting. And this evening we have Martin Schutstra, who's going to take a few minutes and give us some thoughts, some ideas, and maybe some even areas in which PUM can focus on. Martin, thank you so much for taking the time to spend this evening with us. And the floor is yours. And maybe if you may introduce yourself for the first minute or two, a little bit about your background, and then you can go on to your presentation or talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Akash, and good evening, everybody. Many thanks for attending this session. I've been active in the solar industry for almost 15 years now, initially in the Netherlands, but for the last years more in African countries, not only for PUM, but also for other organizations. I've been active with PUM for 4 years now, and enjoyed that particularly doing the field visits. Of course, remote coaching is also working out well. I'm an engineer by training, and let me share you my screen to see if this works. And is this visible? Yes, it is. Okay, great. The topics for today, I mean, solar energy is a vast topic, and as we all know, it's growing globally everywhere. So it's quite difficult to go in detail. What I wanted to do is to show you examples of the applications for agriculture, and simply by photographs, because it triggers the brain and your interest. Then what I think is important is to explain the differences between grid connected and off-grid systems, because often people mix this, and it's very crucial. And it's also crucial if we then look at the economics of solar energy. So I want to touch upon that as well. Then Q&A, and when I saw the questions you already sent in for this today, I noticed many questions. It was about can we get rid of ESCOM and go, can we do off-grid systems and so on. Now, I will show you with economics a little bit what is good or what is bad about it. And another, many people asked about irrigation. Well, let's start with that. Here you see an installation of, say, for feeding of cattle. Is this bar visible at the top or not? It's not hindering you, no. So here, this is a very good example of an off-grid solar installation. In this case, water pumping for cattle feeding. So it's clearly there is no electrical grid in the area, and there's no water either. So the water is being pumped up from a borehole, and the solar is providing the electrical power. The beauty of these sort of systems is that the pump will work when the sun is shining, and say we don't need a battery in this case. So the battery is actually the amount of water stored in the tank, and that helps enormously in terms of cost of these systems. I'll come back to that later. Another application is, say, irrigation. Here you see a set of sprinklers, also a big tank, and the tiny yellow item, that's the pump. That's a pump specifically developed for these sort of small-scale solar applications, highly efficient motors, and very robust for rural areas. Of course, this is a sprinkler irrigation. You can also feed drip irrigation with this system. Another type of pump, this is not a borehole pump, but a pump for surface irrigation. So the pump stays on the surface. So that has some disadvantages. But in this case, a pump is low cost, particularly developed for, say, rural areas for low budget. Another application would be cooling or refrigeration. In this case, it's the cooling. You can see the container, and you see there roses being carried inside the unit to keep the produce at controlled temperature. maybe not very visible, but you see on top of the roof, you see solar modules that are powering the installation. And of course, then if you have the roof with solar, then of course it protects the building also from the solar radiation, so to avoid heating it up too much. You have several variations on this theme. Here you see another one. It's a company actively actually not selling the units, but leasing them. So you see this happening in many countries. I'm not so sure in South Africa if this company is active. Here again, you see the roof with the solar modules on top. Now, another application we tend to forget somehow is actually the drying of crops. And this happens to various crops. I'm not so sure which one this is, but it can be chili peppers or something like that. And the disadvantage, of course, in this case is that you're exposed to all the elements. So if it starts to rain or there are bird droppings or leaves from the trees, then of course that's in terms of say food security is not ideal. So another alternative to that would be a so-called greenhouse dryer. This is actually a PUM mission we did, and in this case, so the produce is protected from the environment, but also the temperatures are higher. And what's not visible on this slide is that in the back there will be a ventilator that extracts the air and the moisture. So again, there's very different variations on this theme, but it's an important one to remember for agriculture. Maybe less obvious for agriculture is hot water. Here you see a solar boiler that is for particularly, so I would say, domestic use, but you can create bigger systems for hospitals. In this case, this is a hospitality application where you have a guest house that has equipped every room with a solar hot water boiler. But for farming, in some cases, so in case you need a lot of hot water, say during the year, then this might be attractive for you. Another particular application, this is desalination, more for island installations where there is no electrical power and where there is no drinking water. There's actually a Dutch company that ships in these containers, which is completely solar powered, and it's converting salty seawater into drinking water. Now, to summarize that, in this slide, you see on the left-hand side, you see the solar thermal applications. Completely left, we generate with the solar energy the hot air for crop drying or space heating. In the middle, we generate hot water for various applications. And on the right-hand side, we have the so-called photovoltaics. We make direct electricity for various applications. There's some of them which I've shown, but I want to go into a bit more detail on this. And particularly the differences between grid-connected and off-grid systems. So a so-called grid-connected system or grid tie system looks a bit like this. On the left-hand side, you see a solar installation. There is an inverter that converts the DC energy into AC power, and that is feeding the load. In this case, there is some, say, domestic loads, lights and television, but of course that can be productive loads in your farm. And during the daytime, the energy is actually used for direct self-consumption. So you have to then, of course, make sure that the system is not too big. And the advantage of doing that is that what you're doing is you are reducing your utility bill. That is the goal of this installation. Depending on the situation, and by looking at the answers of the responses you got from Eskom, I have a feeling that feed in or net metering is difficult with the Eskom, but we can talk about that later. If that is possible, then that is really helpful. Well, I'll come back to that later on as well. I must say that, say, grid-connected systems, like I'm showing here, I would say 90% or even 95% of all solar installations globally are using this setup. So, of course, they can be bigger, but it's grid-connected, so all without batteries. And then you get applications like this. Here's a farm in the Netherlands with a rooftop installation. I will have to add to this one that, yes, the feed-in is allowed. And in the past, subsidies were needed, but fortunately, prices have come down a lot. And in many cases, the subsidies are no longer needed. And the beauty, of course, in South Africa, where you are, that solar irradiation is much better even than the Netherlands. So that looks really, really good from what I can see now. Now, if you make the installations bigger, and they become like this, like field-mounted solar. This is a solar farm, really connected to the electrical grid to supply electrical power, of course, during daytime. If you combine it with agriculture, then you get a mix like this. You see the sheep, they're there to keep the grass short. I must say, there are a lot of animals that you don't want there on a solar farm, because if you have goats, they will start climbing the solar panels and they will damage them. So don't do that, I would say. At the moment, this is the new terminology. It's called agri-photovoltaics. This is a trial and a test being carried right now. And this is here you see raspberries that are growing underneath solar modules. So early days, but something to watch out. And of course, many crops, they don't want that much solar radiation. So it's more like you're protecting your crops at the same time you're generating energy. I must also say this is, of course, like for the Netherlands, where we have a shortage of space. I think in South Africa, that situation is quite different. So maybe not yet for next year, but something to watch out for the future. Another method I'm showing you is this, where you have floating solar modules on a lake or reservoir. This emerged, say, a few years ago, and initially we thought, oh, well, that's only expensive. But there are many cases where this might be beneficial, and particularly where you have already hydro dam and you have a reservoir. You have all the electrical infrastructure in place, and you might benefit from combining these two technologies. Now, off-grid systems and backup I will not mention today, but off-grid is quite different. This is, of course, for remote locations where there is no utility grid. And quite different, of course. You need a battery bank. You see that in the middle at the bottom here. The electronics is slightly different, but the essence is that you charge the battery during daytime, and you use the energy, and the energy you need at nighttime, you draw that from the battery. Of course, if you have loads during daytime, the energy will go directly to the loads from the solar module. And they can be small, but they can be big. This is like a mini grid here. This is in Mali. There's a solar farm. And the solar modules, they don't show that much difference, but next to this, or you see that in the back, there is a building. And in that building, you see a lot of electronics. The yellow boxes are called inverter chargers. And in the rear, not that visible maybe, is a huge battery bank for the nighttime consumption. Now, that's why it's maybe good to look at the economics of solar energy. And it's quite difficult, but let me see if this is clear. What I've done is I'm drawing here for the various technologies some indication of, we call that the levelized cost of energy. That means that you're looking at the total cost, including maintenance and replacement of batteries and so on. Now, at the top, grid-connected solar, that is what I'd shown initially. In many parts of the world now, we're below 10 cents, the US dollar cents per kilowatt hour. And I looked at the numbers for your part of the world. I come at around 6 cents, or probably even less for the bigger installations. So that depends where you are, how much solar irradiation there is. And the prices have dropped dramatically. So if you had, say, a quotation from, say, 4 or 5 years ago, I would say do it again, because it's likely that you'll be surprised about the price. Now, it all depends what you are paying for your electricity right now. Now, this is a broad range I put there. Often the lower end, so the low price is often for companies, and usually residential customers, they pay more for the electricity. Now, funnily enough, of course, if you pay a lot, then it is really beneficial to go for solar, because then you're saving a lot. The snag sometimes is with companies is that they have very low rates, and they manage to, or they're a member of a, say, a trade organization, and get even further discounts. So the disadvantage of that is, of course, that the savings of solar are somewhat lower. Now, if we look at off-grid solar, so in this case, the message here, solar PV often cheaper than utility grid. Off-grid solar is much more expensive. And the reason is that, and that is really the batteries and the more electronics that are required for this. So that's quite unfortunate. And if you look at say, an off-grid solar installation, it is, you can say, almost more expensive than the utility grid. So if you say to yourself, I want to be off-grid, I want to get rid of ESCOM, my message would be, reconsider that. Or the question would be, why would you want to do that? Because financially, it's not a very good case. And in fact, you could even wonder if environmentally, that's a good case, because the batteries have a lifetime, a limited lifetime, depends. Good batteries will last maybe 8 to 10 years, but you will have to replace that and so on. Then there's a recycling issue and so on. So off-grid solar cannot compete with the utility. But often you're not comparing or competing off-grid solar with the utility, but with the genset. And the generator is expensive. And that's because, of course, you buy the fuel for this generator. So quite often off-grid solar can be cheaper. I would say not always, because it's a bit more complicated. And I'll show you that in the next slide. And I'm showing here several graphs. On the horizontal axis is the running hours of the installation, and on the vertical axis is the cumulative cost. Now, the solar PV, you see the yellow red line at the bottom, that is grid connected solar. Now, you have to buy this installation upfront. So it's a high investment, a fixed cost, and it's more expensive, therefore, than the utility grid. If you have a utility grid, you get connected. You have to pay a sign-up fee maybe, but it's of course it's no investment or hardly any investment. But the more you use your solar installation, of course, utility, you have to pay the electricity bill and the kilowatt hours consumed. And with grids connected solar, you will reach a break-even moment. For South Africa, we'll come to that in a minute, but it's a couple of several years, and then beyond that, of course, the electricity is almost for free. If you compare that to a generator, generators usually cheaper, but as soon as you run them, you pay for your diesel, and the break-even for grid-connected solar there is providing you have to use the solar every day. So imagine we're talking about solar pumping or solar irrigation. If you say, I need this pump a couple of hours per month, then it doesn't warrant to invest in solar installation. But if you say, well, this pump is operating every day, then it probably will make sense to invest in solar. Now, off-grid solar is the other bar, yellow bar higher up. That's more expensive upfront, and there the break-even compared to the gen set is a bit further in time. So again, if you're using the solar installation every day, then it becomes attractive. Now we'll come back to this. Maybe you'll have questions about this chart because I'm struggling a little bit to pass on the message. We'll see. So as I mentioned already earlier, I would say stay with Eskom, but reduce your utility bill. So by the sound of it, feed-in is not allowed. And then my recommendation would be invest in a smaller system. So a smaller system direct self-consumed money for that. And it's a system without batteries. Now the slide will be a bit like this. You need to know what your load profile is during the day. But that means that during daytime, you will reduce the purchase of the grid and avoid the feed-in. Having the sizing is important here. And at nighttime, of course, you buy from Eskom. Now, I looked at a little bit some numbers. As I mentioned, I would estimate the cost of solar in your region around 6 cents per kilowatt hour, dollar cents per kilowatt hour. Now, imagine if you are paying 10 cents per kilowatt hour, then the payback is around 7 years. But I suspect that the prices are much higher. If I tried to look at the tariffs, and I thought it was rather complicated to figure it out. And often for businesses, there are tax incentives. So in that case, the payback will be much better. The beauty of solar is that the lifetime is very long, 25 years. I have a system operating now since 2008, and time flies, as we all know. And of course, you're in the money after 6-7 years, and then you're making a profit. Here, and you see the bar chart. Its investment is 100,000, and then over 25 years, you have a profit of 200,000. So, of course, if you have the cash or if you can borrow the money for that. So this is the story up to now. Let's go for the questions.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you so much. And I think you got the local context well captured. Eskom is the problem, and sometimes it's the difficult devil you still have to live with. euphorically you want to get off it, but it might not be possible. Thank you so much. Colleagues, any questions? Any ideas that you might have, or any questions for your particular farm? I think some of you all might have already explored or implemented it. So while you are thinking about a question, or if anyone wants to raise the question, remember, we've done many PUM remote coaching or actual coaching or missions to help look at the individual need, assessment, also configuration with possible equipment, and also to acclimatize to local circumstances. You know, like I learned the other day that in Northern Cape, it's too hot for lithium-ion batteries, you know, to be used as part of a solution attached to it. So you have the opportunity to have your own coach to look at your particular problem. But we'll take any colleagues, any questions from colleagues. I see 1, 2, 3 hands are up. So let's start with IH first. Cool. You just want to unmute, please, and maybe just introduce yourself. Are you muted? I can try to unmute you. There we are. There we are. You're unmuted.
Akash, thanks so much. Ian Hill from Greytown, member of Kwanalu. Thanks, John. Thanks, Sandy. Yeah, very interesting, Martin. Thanks so much. It certainly confirms we've been looking at this for a while now, and just from what it appears from our gathering of knowledge is that Eskom won't allow you to put in a system if it's going to be grid tied that is bigger than 75% of your transformer size. So you can, if you've got 100 kVA, you can only go up to 75 kVA. You are able to consolidate transformers with an internal power line, and there are service providers that do that. And the other thing is, if your transformers are on the same Eskom rural line, you're able to then consolidate those on a single account, which does help. But those weren't my questions. I was wanting to find out, down the line, is hydrogen, obviously green hydrogen coming from solar, is that the next stage in the alternative energy space to deal with the after hours when solar can't be used?
Yes, particularly that's on the development when we talk about off-grid wind power, and you can imagine, of course, that when there's a surplus of energy, green energy, then it's beneficial to produce hydrogen. And the beauty of hydrogen is that you can store that more easily than, well, hydrogen is already complicated, but you can store that nevertheless more easily than in a battery, if you're talking about big scale. I'm not so sure if for smaller installations that will be in reach quite soon. Then I would say they're probably better to look at alternatives like biogas, for instance. That would be much easier on a smaller scale. And hydrogen in itself is not that cheap, and the cycle is not very efficient. So it's really when we talk about surplus of energy, then it becomes attractive.
Okay, I was just thinking around about the fact when Eskom say they won't buy back the power that could be used, but I hear what you say about it needing to have certain scalability and size before that becomes viable.
Yeah, so often what people do is produce hot water, and if you need hot water, then you can do that, then use that as a storage item. I'm actually following the space for battery storage for a couple of years now, and prices are coming down, and if we talk about lithium in particular. But still, the penalty for storage is huge in terms of the cost of solar, unfortunately. Is that answered? Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you, Andrew. I see your hand's been up. Andrew, unmute, please.
Thank you, Akash. And yeah, thank you for a very nice, interesting forum. Martin, could I ask you to say a little bit more about pumping water up in the day to a reservoir from a dam and then running it back down? Can you give us just an idea of, if you, let's say you wanted to do a 10 kilowatt system, what sort of volume of water are you talking about that you need to pump up during the day? I just like an idea of the size of a thing like that.
Oh dear! Now you're catching me out. Well, let's put it this way. On top of my head, I have no numbers with it. But we can help you with that. And you because you have a hydro dam, is that what I understand?
Yeah. Well, we're there. We have quite a large body of water and probably about a 60-meter head and a large reservoir on the top. And it would just make sense if one could, if one is going to go solar, to have some sort of, if you're not going for the batteries, if you can pump it up in the day and run it back down during the night on a sort of an ad hoc demand system somehow, where you could stop it running when you really aren't using anything. That might be quite an efficient way of getting around the nighttime problem.
Yeah, this is the combination of hydro with solar is just perfect. It's just fantastic. So depends what you want to achieve and what the goal is. But indeed, you would use, say, the hydro at nighttime and solar during daytime. That's how I would do it, at least. Maybe you don't need to pump it back up again. But that depends really on your project. I couldn't judge that just right now.
Yeah, sure.
But the combination is just perfect. You use the hydro as the battery for nighttime load and solar for daytime. Yeah.
And I suppose you could also put timers onto all your geysers and all the heavy load things. And if you cook bread, you do it during the day and completely minimize your nighttime usage.
And in that case, and in your case in particular, I think it depends. Hydro is generally cheaper than solar, but it depends if you have enough water, of course. So if you don't, then probably you want to prefer using solar. But I mean, this is really. And did you look into this already?
No, I haven't. But it's been on the back of my mind. But it's coming to the point where one needs to perhaps start looking at it.
Yeah. And do you have a large energy demand?
No, well, our trouble is our pumps for irrigation are very separated on the farm, and it would be very nice and convenient to put a largish system that can deal with them all. But it's too separated. So we would start looking at the domestic situation first, and the pumps attached to the domestic power source, and that's an 80 kVA transformer. But we would start small and just get the get the feel of it. Yeah.
And your grid, you have also a grid from Eskom, grid connection.
Yeah, we do. So in South Africa, a transformer, or we have a basic line charge, which is sort of around about 4,000 Rand a month. And our cents per kilowatt hour after the basic charge is about R1.40. So you've got quite an overhead charge, which if you can kick the transformer out, that goes quite a long way to your payments. But I mean, you've pointed out the difficulties with that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it sounds there's more work to be done in this case. Put in an application.
Colleagues, you just want to take one or two more questions, if I may just ask, and if we may proceed. John, I see your hand up is as well.
It is, Akash. I've got an unfair advantage that I helped select the topics, and I'm very happy about them. And so Andrew nicked one of my questions about the water potential. So thanks. That was very, very interesting answers. Martin, unbelievable altogether. Just a question: when you did your numbers and you said, approximate or rough South African estimations, that 6 cents per kilowatt hour, I assume, was dollars. And what sort of size system you'd put that in as a solar estimate? What sort of size system was that? And the reason I ask is because we've got, I hear this conversation from farmers all the time about energy, solar, Eskom. And I wrote here, maybe if we have some projects like this, we could do like an idiot's guide to the numbers for my farm, so that guys can punch in an Excel sheet that we standardize and share, so that they get a rough picture before they go to detailed questions. But yeah, sort of what size is that? I pulled my bill off here and I paid 20 cents per kilowatt at the tail end of my month domestically. And so it's just really interesting to understand, could I do it on my domestic roof or not? How big is the installation going to be?
Yeah, so it's almost unbelievable if I say it's almost irrespective of the size of the installation. So the cost, the investment, and the benefit, it's almost linear, except for really small installations. So, okay, if you let's just say, because then you talk about, say, the cabling and installation charges and so on. So of course, the bigger installation, of course there's a tail.
Yeah.
So, but it's I would say if you talk about 10 panels, 10 modules, beyond that, it's all more or less the same. And
wow.
If you're paying $20 per, that's not. We pay that here in the Netherlands too.
Yeah.
So then it's straight away you're in the money, because of course your solar irradiation is much better in South Africa. What may be not the case is that the prices of your suppliers are still a bit higher. There is enormous competition here in the Netherlands, so the prices have come down quite a lot. But I'm sure this is you're in the money. Maybe payback time 5 years. So it's never 2 years or 3 years. It's never the case. But the installation will last a long time. So before you know, you're already in the money.
Especially with our inflation and Eskom requesting 17 or 18% increase each year. So
yeah. Go for it.
Thanks.
Excellent. Colleagues, any one last question? We're reaching towards the tail end. I think the whole purpose of today's session was just to whet the appetite, just to explain that you saw two experts. We actually have 16,998 more of them sitting in this big pool that's available, that's yet to, at no cost, to be able to become your executive coach, your global coach, free of charge. And it's a relationship that PUM has with Kwanalu, that is a memorandum of understanding or partnership agreement, that's the right word, Ed, that we've signed, that we're working with, and it's here for your benefit as being a member for this particular association. So if there's any other questions, if we're going once or twice, we'll just entertain it for Martin, and you can still communicate. You can just drop myself or Miranda an email if you have questions. We'll get you in contact with Martin or with Rick, the previous speaker, as well. And you can still be able to engage. If you want to convert this to having your own coach, that's also possible. Any other questions, colleagues? Going once, going twice. Thank you, Martin. Thank you so much. We really, really appreciate your help. And I think I like how you brought it down to local context. And I'm sure we're going to get a few questions post this session for yourself. Thank you very, very much. And I think a big thank you for all of you all that are attending. And I think the call to action is, John, if you may just post that link again once more, is that this was just very much to whet your appetite, to say that we have this pool of 1,700 coaches. And just to share with you, John and I did an application for a Kwanalu member recently where he's trying to find a solar / I think he's got a drop in the river, John, that particular client. And he's trying to get a combination.
Exactly what Andrew described. He's got a high point with water and he wants to do a solar pump to the top and gravity feed down.
Cool. So we got that Kwanalu member has already got his coach and they're having a look at it as we speak at the moment, and just brainstorming to see if it's something should be explored or shouldn't be explored. So no question and no problem is a stupid problem, a stupid question. Colleagues, thank you very, very much. Thank you for making the time available. To the Kunalu team, thank you sincerely, Sandy, and to John, to facilitating it. To the PUM team in the Netherlands, thank you very, very much. Colleagues, there's only one more thing left to do, is that we have to give one prize away. We have to give one 2-night stay that's valued at 9,000 Rand. I think that's what Ansbeer Lord says, for 2 people at 2 nights, dinner, bed, and breakfast in the Drakensberg. Also, you have to be a Kunalu member. So John will have to guide me here if the person who answers the question is the actual Kunalu member. And I think Kunalu officials are not allowed, John, to participate into it as well. So I think we'll make it quite easier. We'll ask you if you can please help us. You heard about the PUM. It's sponsored by the Netherlands people. For those of you who can easily, maybe you can put your hands up, or you can answer in the chat. Marinda, if you can maybe help me on this one, whoever answers first, is could you help us to say, what are the requirements for a business to apply for the PUM Netherlands program? What are the guiding indicators? I mentioned a few. If you can mention 1 or 2 for me. So if you're going to put your hands up to be able to give me, you got to be Kunalu member, or if you, and everyone who joined is a member. Thank you, John. What are the requirements to be able Robin, I assume to you that you're the first put out, but you got to show us your picture, Robin, because we don't know if
Robin.
Robin can, if this is an AI device that's answering the question on the other side. Are you allowed to put your camera on, Robin? Once. Are you there, Robin? Robin, you answer the question. Yes.
It's I can't seem to figure out how to put my camera on.
Okay, don't worry.
You have to have a staff of at least 10 people.
Yes, and okay, and what else?
You have to be going for 3 years.
Excellent. Well done, Robin. Well done. Well, congratulations. If I may ask you to maybe, we do have your details from the actual details that Kunal has given us, but also Marinda will pop you a voucher, and it's claimable over the next 2 years for a 2-night stay at one of our PUM beneficiaries, Antbeer Lodge, for 2 people, dinner, bed, and breakfast. Colleagues, thank you very much. Congratulations, Robin. And I hope you found this informative. And if you want to explore this little more, you're more than welcome to engage with Marinda, myself, or the link that John's posted. And we look forward to hearing from you, and we probably will invite you to the next session. Thank you. Take care.
Akash, can I jump in?
Yes,
from
John,
a Kunalu side, thank you so much for what you've done, your planning, your organizing. Thank you to all of the PUM guys. Really appreciate your time. It's been really, really informative and really appreciated.
Cool, perfect. Thank you, colleagues. Stay safe, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, Jose.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.